Alrighty, if you're spending almost $100 on your commander deck, you'd better expect it to be pretty good. So Planeswalker Party, you've got a lot to live up to after how bad the Sliver deck reveals were yesterday outside of the new cards. Let's jump into the video and take a look at it. Alright, thanks so much everybody for checking out the video. I really do appreciate everyone who is here and those of us who have been watching. I've actually been able to, very quick update, apply for a YouTube partner. Finally hit that threshold, so thank you, and more details on that to come as it will be here. Because I really want to do some fun stuff, and having a bit more, opportunity and expansion to do that, I think will be great. But that's not why you're here. We're here today to talk about the Planeswalker Party deck. It was just revealed in full on Magic Stream. I was thinking it was going to be around noontime Eastern. It turns out it was 1 p.m. Eastern, so that's fine. But I do have all the new cards, and yesterday we posted the video talking about the Slipper deck. There are some really neat new Slippers, but the rest of the Slippers, reprints and stuff, kind of leave something to be desired with a few exceptions. So people didn't exactly have the highest expectations going into this one. But I'm happy to report I actually think it's okay. There's definitely some interesting new cards, and I think some of the reprints are relatively noteworthy as well, so let's just get into it. Starting off with Commodore Guff. Now, he was revealed a couple months back, but we'll go over his effect quickly. He's 1 and then blue, red, white. It is at the beginning of your end step, put a loyalty counter on another target planeswalker you control. You can +1, create a 1/1 red wizard creature token with tap, add red, spend this mana only to cast a planeswalker spell. You can -3 him to draw X cards and deal X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of planeswalkers you control. And of course, he can be your commander. Definitely not a bad card. It's definitely good to be able to stack up loyalty counters during the end step, and mana generation, the draw power. There's a lot of things to like about this card. I think he'll be one of the better commander options for a deck here. At the very least, I think he'll be good to build around, and he's got a pretty decent color mixing going on here. So I like him. I felt like he was okay when he was first revealed. My feelings really haven't changed on him, but let's take a look at some of his support. We've got Liori, Spark-Touched Hunter. This is blue, red, white, and it is Flying Vigilance, legendary creature, elemental cat. Whenever Liori deals combat damage to a player, choose a planeswalker type. Until end of turn, whenever you activate an ability of a planeswalker of that type, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copies. So the planeswalker type would be like Guff or Jace or what have you, based on my understanding of this. So being able to duplicate an ability is actually kind of interesting. I'm not super well versed with some specific Magic rulings. I don't know if this would allow you to double up on the loyalty counters as well, that you add or subtract, but I think it might just be a matter of you only pay the loyalty counters once, and then the effect triggers twice. But somebody could tell me if I'm wrong on that in the comments below, because it's certainly a very real possibility. Not a bad card, though. Pretty straightforward and easy to bring out. And with Flying and Vigilance, I don't think it's going to be a commander by any, stretch of the imagination. But I think being a mythic, it's supposed to be like the alternate commander. But it's not a terrible card. And if you're playing like a Planeswalker-themed deck, I could see where you'd want to slot this fella in. Guff rewrites history. 2 and a red, says instant for each player. Choose target non-enchantment, non-land permanent that player controls. Those permanents' owners shuffle those cards into their libraries. Each player who controlled one of those permanents exiles a card from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card, then puts the rest on the bottom of their library in a random order. They may cast that non-land card they exiled this turn without paying its mana cost. So it's like a weird hybrid of like Chaos Warp with like one of its Holly's effects, where it sort of like just brings everything out and you can cast them. So, it gives a bit of an impulse draw there, but it's kind of a random RNG removal, but decent because it's an instant. It's like, like I said, it's Chaos Warp-esque, but it's not awful. I mean, granted, you're taking a risk that your opponents may get to play something like even more powerful than what you get rid of, but you can also get rid of something that's, instantly problematic. So, yeah, it's not terrible. I don't really know what it's going to look like in practice just yet, but on paper, it feels like it does have some potential, at least as a way to out problems, even with that risk. Jaya's Phoenix, I think, is actually nuts. This is 4 and a black. This is 4 and a red, and it's a Phoenix with flying and haste. Whenever Jaya's Phoenix deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, copy the next loyalty ability you activate this turn. When you activate it, you may choose new targets for the copy. Whenever you cast a planeswalker spell, you may return Jaya's Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is absolutely absurd. You can use cards like Faithful Saluting to get this engraved and then cast a Planeswalker and then bring it back. And it has haste, so you can attack the turn you bring it back out. There are so many things to like about this card. I think it's really, really strong, and it's absolutely going to be a buff for anything playing planeswalkers, just a really good card. And I mean, I don't know how much it synergizes with its fellow Phoenixes, but it's definitely a really cool card to keep in mind. I'm very impressed with this one. Chandra, Legacy of Fire. I gotta say, the artwork here not doing it for me. Maybe you like it. I don't know. Looks a bit like a troll doll. Not 100% sure, but here we are. 4 and a red. At the beginning of your end step, Chandra deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of planeswalkers you control. You can +1 to add red for each planeswalker you control. Not bad. And then you can pay 0, remove a loyalty counter from each of any number of permanents you control. Exile that many cards from the top of your library. You may play them this turn. So, Impulse Draw for free, not bad, but you do have to take loyalty counters off of, any of your planeswalkers. If you're really starting to stack them up and get a lot of extra counters, proliferating and all those things, then maybe that's not too bad for you. Cool to see a new Chandra, and it's certainly not bad. It's just very planeswalker specific, which is obviously by design, but it's not, I don't think it's going to generically like slot into a deck necessarily, but it's certainly a cool card. Bronos, Masked Inquisitor. I love the art on this. I think it's so cool. 3 and 2 blue. You can +1 up to 2 other target planeswalkers you control phase out at the beginning of the next end step. You can -2 for each opponent. Return up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls to its owner's hand. And you can -7. Target artifact you control becomes a 9/9 construct artifact creature and gains vigilance, indestructible, and this creature can't be blocked. Not bad for the -2, being able to clear problem cards off the board, especially in a pot of 4. That -7 is actually kind of cool. I mean, obviously it doesn't have hexproof, so it can still be like Path to Exiled or whatever, but I don't know, getting a 9/9 unblockable, indestructible creature definitely is pretty strong. And then the first effect, is okay to kind of protect your planeswalkers. It's until the next end step, so they'll phase out, and then, when they come back, I believe the way that'll work is the counters will stay the same. It's not like you're removing them and bringing them back to the field, but at least you can protect them from, opponent damage or, whatever may come of it. Spark Shaper Visionary, 2 and a blue. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose any number of target planeswalkers you control. Until end of turn, they become 3/3 blue bird creatures with flying, hexproof, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, scry 1. They are no longer planeswalkers, but loyalty abilities can still be activated. Pretty cool. Being able to turn your planeswalkers into creatures means that they're not necessarily going to be as easily hit, especially having hexproof, so that's neat. And you can still use the loyalty abilities, so you have the ability to, stack the counters, still resolve things. It's really cool conceptually, and it doesn't have to deal combat damage or anything. It's just at the beginning of combat on your turn, so there's a lot to like about this card. Tio, Geometric Tactician, is 2 and a white, a new planeswalker. When it enters the battlefield, create a 0/4 white wall creature token with Defender and Flying. You can +1 you and target opponent, each draw a card, or -2, choose left or right. Until your next turn, each player may attack only the nearest opponent in the last chosen direction, and planeswalkers controlled by that opponent. That is a very wonky effect, but I certainly can see where it would be annoying and maybe even problematic. If your opponent, you're sitting to the right of your opponent, you choose left, they can only attack left, and they can only attack that person's planeswalkers. You can obviously use against you. There's ways to negotiate this to help out others in pods, maybe make some politicking happen, but also just to protect yourself. And the draw power is not bad, so it's cute for sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see what it actually does on in practice. Gatewatch Beacon is 2 and a white. This is an artifact that enters the battlefield with 3 loyalty counters on it. You can tap it to add white, which is solid. Whenever a planeswalker enters the battlefield under your control, if Gatewatch Beacon has loyalty counters on it, you may move a loyalty counter from Gatewatch Beacon onto that planeswalker. This is really good. There's not too many cards that do things like this. Obviously, there are cards that can move counters around, but this is neat, and the fact that it's an artifact that also taps for mana does make it multi-purpose. If you proliferate this and stack it, you can really start to have an extra resource of loyalty counters to continue putting on stuff, which I think is certainly neat to keep an eye on. And then Onaki Oathkeeper is a 1 and a white. Creatures cannot attack planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 1 for each creature they control that's attacking a planeswalker you control. That is a lot of words, but basically they have to pay 1 to attack a planeswalker you control for each creature they're attacking. It's sort of like I forget the name of the card, like a ghostly prison, but specific to planeswalkers and with a lower cost they have to pay, but neat enough. And it is a 0/4, and it also has 4 white, exile it from your graveyard, return target planeswalker card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So being able to pay 6 essentially to get any planeswalker on board, if you have a way to send it to grave or discard it, is certainly not something to overlook, and I think probably the strongest element that this card has. But his stalling ability can help too, and really to help protect your planeswalkers or force your opponent to have to get it over. So either way, really not bad. There are a lot of cool cards here, and a few of them that I think are really, really powerful, and some that I think I'm kind of undecided on, and we'll just kind of wait to see how they end up playing in practice, but I'm pretty excited about it. Let's take a look at some of the reprints, because while the Sliver deck did not do that yesterday all that well on the reprint front, there are a few noteworthy reprints in here, so I feel like it's worth at least mentioning. First up, we've got Mystic Gate. Now, this card is not only extremely good, it is a very, very pricey card for a while. It was like 25 bucks. It dropped down a little bit more recently, but it's only been reprinted a couple of times, and a lot of the filter lands are much cheaper, but Mystic Gate remained pretty high, so it is a good inclusion in here without a doubt. We've got Cascade Bluffs as well. This is the blue-red filter land, and this one was less money, around $5-6, but still a good value land inclusion. And we've also got Rugged Prairie, which is the red-white filter land. This one not as expensive as the other two, but still more than $1, more than $2. You know, nice to have the option to get these a bit more accessibly. We've also got Karns Bastion, which was like a $3 to $4 card, and good at proliferating. Can I speak today? Good at proliferating, which was obviously hype when the poison counter mechanic returned with Toxic, but just in general, being able to proliferate stuff in here is going to be really good, so I like this inclusion. Talisman of Progress and the other talismans as well, getting another reprint after being reprinted recently, but this one still kind of holds on to value, and I think it's good to just keep reprinting the talismans in whatever products we can, because they're generically some of the better mana rock options, and they just never, you know, become super affordable unless, you know, you're looking at some of the less commonly played ones. And finally, we've got the Chain Veil. It's a legendary artifact. This was around $25. Really, really good for Planeswalkers, allowing you to activate their abilities more than once in a turn. This was starting to go up there quite a bit, so it's a welcome reprint in here, and overall, just a much better value inclusion. Now, I'm not saying that these reprints are groundbreaking by any stretch of the imagination, but compared to the Sliver Deck's reprints, they are certainly better, because there are at least, you know, 5 or 6 cards in here worth keeping an eye on, and I'd say 2 or 3 that are, you know, we're really kind of in need of another reprint, a more accessible reprint. But there's some good cards here, you know, for the new stuff as well. Now, this deck was pre-selling around like 70 bucks on TCG Player. We still don't know. We don't have an MSRP, but I've heard from a few people that the distributor price on this is going to be around 80, which is certainly higher than your average Commander deck. But, you know, is 80 bucks horrible for this? It's certainly not amazing, but is 60 bucks okay for this? Probably. So it really just depends. I mean, if these were normally priced Commander decks, I think they'd be a lot more worth it. I think it'd be sort of like a no-brainer, but obviously because it's a quote-unquote premium product, they're going to go up on it, so that's where we're at. It's not a terrible deck, though, honestly. It really isn't. It's got a lot of, you know, stuff to look at, and I'm curious to to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of the Planeswalker Party deck, the new cards, and the reprints, and is this one you might be getting, not going to get? Curious to hear why. And, you know, thank you so much for the interaction. So, that's going to do it for this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Click the bell icon if you want to stay notified, and I'll catch you in the next video.